Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Tomorrowland? Stick around and find out. Alright. So, the IMDb synopsis for Tomorrowland. Oh, by the way, if you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Peter Franson from Christian Geek Central and Spirit Blade Productions, and this is my uncut review of Tomorrowland. Alright, the IMDb synopsis says, bound by a shared destiny, a teen bursting with scientific curiosity and a former boy genius inventor embark on a mission to unearth the secrets of a place somewhere in time and space that exists in their collective memory. And that place being, of course, Tomorrowland. This girl finds this little pin. Whenever she touches it, she leaps over to this strange world and is like, what is this world all about? And so she's trying to discover this place, to get to this place, to find out what it's for and what role she might have in this world. And that is her journey of discovery through most of the movie. So the story, the action and exposition ratio is pretty good. I never felt like, boy, this is, kind of getting boring, at least not for those reasons. But I felt like the stakes were revealed too late in the movie. The whole time, most of the movie, they're trying to get to Tomorrowland. It doesn't take place largely in Tomorrowland. They're trying to kind of get there, and this girl is just kind of along for the ride in many ways, and she's like, what's going on? What's the importance of this place? Or, what's wrong? What evil is coming out of this place? Or what good can come out of this place? And, there's just these huge questions about what Tomorrowland is and what its purpose is. And I wish that they would have revealed kind of the purpose of Tomorrowland much earlier in the movie, and also revealed the stakes involved. The big stakes that these characters are playing for are not revealed until like the last 20 minutes of the movie, and I wish they would have been revealed much earlier. As a result, I was curious about the movie and where it was going, but I wasn't concerned. I wasn't really emotionally invested. This is a movie about as far as like your experience as a viewer, it's probably going to be more about just kind of the wonder of possibility and what the future could be potentially like. It's not really about suspense. There are some suspenseful action moments, but I mean, only in a family movie kind of way. There are family physics presented in the first 5 minutes, and by that I mean there are people getting knocked around who should be dead because of what happened to them. And, there's a little kid that I won't spoil the circumstances, but he gets knocked around and biffs it so bad. I'm like, that kid should be dead. And there's no way he didn't break something. But not in this movie. He shakes it off. So I was never concerned for anyone in this movie. The action felt more like the action you would experience in an amusement park ride, or like how I felt when I watched the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I didn't feel like those characters were ever in danger. They were just kind of like in these strange places with moving platforms and stuff. Oh, it's like a video game or a fun house or something like that. It didn't feel like anyone was in trouble or I should be concerned about anybody. And that's largely how I felt in this movie. Now, it's also a kids' family movie, in that kids are empowered in this movie. That's something that I really hate. It's one reason that I just, I realized at one point that I grew out of, a certain type of family movie when I realized that this is stupid that these kids are always one-upping the adults. This is just dumb. It feels great as a kid. When you're a kid, you want to feel empowered, but I mean, it doesn't work for me as an adult. What they do in this movie that kind of makes me accept it a little bit more is the kids in particular in this movie are geniuses, or they are unusual in some way that kind of justifies them being so brilliant and kind of getting one up on the adults. But in this movie, adults are largely jaded. I was going to say stupid, like they are usually in, bumbling fools in other movies, but that's not necessarily the case. They're just really jaded. And so we need these pure, innocent kids to come along with their naivete and just show us how great the world can be. But the main character, Casey, is in her class and listening to teacher after teacher throughout the day saying, we are all headed for dystopia and there could be nuclear disaster at any time, and they all have just this really grim view of the future, and she's always raising her hand and she's saying, and finally a teacher calls on her and she says, well, what can we do to fix it? And then the bell rings and the teacher kind of is saved by the bell. It's like she's the only one that wants to try and fix the future, and the adults, the social machine of the world is just kind of like given up on the future. That's how they present it in this movie. The characters are very basic, very two-dimensional. I felt like pretty much, what they were saying was exactly what they were thinking. I mean, it's not like, like real people who say things, but they're really thinking or feeling something a little bit different, and they're kind of trying to mask that a little bit. I felt for the most part everyone was an open book and two-dimensional and fairly uninteresting as characters in this movie, and I think that's fine for a kids movie, a family movie like this, but there's no layers for adults, and that's what I appreciate when I think a family movie like this is done really well. It's got the things that kids are going to love, but it's got a number of layers for the adults too, so that if maybe the adults wouldn't go see it without their kids, at least while they're pinned down, forced to watch this movie to have a family experience with their kids, at least they can be entertained and get some deeper things out of it than maybe their kids are getting. The performances in this movie, the only actor I recognized was George Clooney, and the performances were all fine. They were slightly overdone though, with like I said, a little subtext, and it fits this family movie tone, but I don't like it. I don't like it, Now, I usually don't review family movies, but I wasn't sure what to make of this based on the previews. I was like, boy, this looks like it could have some cool kind of like Terminator vibes to it, with them being hunted down by these machines that are trying to kill them and blow them up. There was lots of like sci-fi action. The trailers that I saw were really pretty serious. And it's not that this movie is a big like goofball fest, but it does have a bit of a lighter kid movie type tone than I would like. I would have liked an experience like what I had when I watched Maleficent, which I felt like it was, as far as the content, they could get away with, I believe it was a PG rating in that case. They could get away with a PG rating because there wasn't really blood, there wasn't gore, there wasn't really big scares and stuff like that. But there were other aesthetics about the visual design and some of the things that the characters were doing and motivated by, that were for, they were more like kind of adult, mature themes. I don't mean mature in the sense of like sex or anything like that, but I just mean like things that kids just don't think about, that drive people to do the things that they do, So I wanted something like that with this movie. I wanted this movie that was accessible to kids, but at the same time had layers and stuff for adults, and I really didn't feel like it had a ton of that. I think it maybe intended that. Brad Bird directed this, and I believe he's the one that directed both The Incredibles and The Iron Giant, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Those are two great examples of movies that are definitely accessible and primarily for kids, but they've got these great layers that adults will get a whole lot out of. And I think they were trying for that in this movie with some of the themes that they were playing with, but I'll talk about in a little bit why those themes all kind of fell flat and were very empty and nonsensical to me. So the stunts and visuals, lots of CG stunts and other effects, lots of body replacement, as there are things that kids were doing that really kids should not be doing, and they would be in big trouble if the kids were doing them on the set, at least, without padding or something. And so they did a lot of human replacement for stunts, and they masked it pretty well, but it was still detectable. And of course there's lots of cool lasers and weird sci-fi technology and stuff that's lots of fun. I would say that the design of this movie, the visual design, is better than the execution. The execution wasn't bad, it was just standard CG. I'm cursed with an eye that can pick out CG really well, so I always like when movies try to push the boundaries, and they really didn't do that in this movie, but I did enjoy the visual design. The guns had these kind of retro future look to them, like a 1950s, maybe even 40s, 30s, dare I say, I'm not sure, but like 30s through 60s, that kind of vision of the sci-fi future would be the basic shape of like weapons and tech and stuff, but then they would add modern textures and details and complexity to them, so that it was like this cool blend of like, retro future and what we would expect to see in a modern sci-fi movie. I hope that Disney remakes Tomorrowland to look like this movie and look like the Tomorrowland of this movie. Cost a boatload of money probably, but I would really love it if they did that. I would be a little bit more interested in going back to Disneyland if they... Actually, I haven't checked. Maybe they have by now. I have no idea. But I want to go to this Tomorrowland, Disney. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about those themes. First, let me give you the definition for humanism. Humanism is defined as an outlook or system of thought attaching prime importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. Humanist beliefs stress the potential value and goodness of human beings, emphasize common human needs, and seek solely rational ways of solving human problems. So I think this movie was driven by humanistic philosophy, and it responds, and it's written, I think, in response to dystopian and apocalyptic sci-fi entertainment. I was almost like, I could almost imagine them sitting in a boardroom and saying, okay, let's see. We want to get more people to Disneyland. Let's try to make Tomorrowland relevant. Is there any way we can do that? Because it's this old weird 1950s kind of view of the future, and it's kind of, aside from Star Tours, the most boring place you go. And I mean, they remade one of the other rides or something like that in Disneyland. But anyway, I feel like maybe that was their intent, was to kind of reinvigorate that concept and make it relevant again. And so this is a response, because really, if you look at like the visions of the future that we see in video games and movies and stuff, the dystopian or post-apocalyptic idea of the future is getting more and more popular. And they even acknowledge that in this movie. They say that, like in the villain's speech at the end, he's like the world is ending because we accept this dystopian apocalyptic future. We put it in our video games, in our books, in our movies. He has this monologue at the end that's it's like a humanistic sermon at the at the end. The Casey at one point, as they're finally identifying what the main problem is, and and what's going to cause the world to end, she basically breaks it down and says, yeah, this thing is, there's some kind of like a sci-fi element involved in the story that's kind of affecting people, and she says, and it's making people think negative instead of positive. Okay, so let's write this down. What did you say again? Positive? Can you spell that? Okay, that's the answer. Think positive. Awesome. Wow, this is revolutionary. The message, I think, of this movie is think positive. But what is positive? What does that mean? Just kind of think happy thoughts, good vibes, stuff like that. I see that kind of thing on message boards all the time, when someone's, hurting or something like that. We say, I'm sending good vibes your way, or I'm thinking good thoughts or whatever. What does that mean? What use is that? And even if we're not talking about that kind of thing, which is kind of like this, secularized replacement for prayer, what does it mean to think positive just in our lives to try and bring about something better? What does it mean just to don't think about what could go wrong, just think about what could go right? Well, I mean, there's some value in that, absolutely, but I think we ought to think about what could potentially go wrong so that we can circumvent that outcome. So the message of this movie is think positive, but they never define what positive is. You are special, you can make the world better, and together we can make utopia. And the method that they present in this movie is to get the best dreamers, the best geniuses, the best creative types together and let them change the world. Okay? But here's the problem. Being smart and creative and a dreamer alone will not create utopia. It'll create rapture. If you've played BioShock, that's what it can just as easily potentially create. What we need is a superior moral code than the one we live by now, and we need to all agree to live by it, and then we all need to live by it consistently. If we don't do that, then people are going to be serving all kinds. You can get all these geniuses, creative types together. They're all going to be serving ultimately different agendas. Their selfishness is going to come through. We're just not, we need a moral absolute. We need absolute virtues to guide and unite us. And this movie ignores that detail, and I think the sequel is BioShock. There were a number, and if you want a real-world example, there were a number of Nazis that were brilliant, creative thinkers. So we've had plenty of real-world examples as well of that whole concept going really terribly wrong. And even the recruiters in this movie who are supposed to go find these people and bring them together are given no more specific criteria for those who will create everyone's future for us. then go find dreamers, go find creators, go find people who want to do the right thing, And they don't even say do the right thing. They use this metaphor about like feeding different wolves and stuff, and it even further masks the ultimate problem of we have no solitary single moral code that we can all agree on that's going to shape this future. We're not going to share the same priorities unless we have the same virtues, the same moral code. That's the core problem that we have to deal with first, and then get the creative types together. Even, if you're going to take a humanistic view, which I don't, but I mean, you at least have to have that to start with, because you don't want to get the geniuses and creative types on board in a project like that are not going to, they're going to go off and do their own, like, I'm going to make my left eyeball huge because it'll look awesome, and he'll be really good at that, but that's not going to help anybody. All right. Another little theme, which I've seen in tons of movies, is AI, artificial intelligence. The audience is asked in this movie to emotionally invest in the personhood of a robot, and one character in the movie deeply cares for this robot, and this robot, visibly expresses emotions and stuff, and I think as we're meant to believe as audience members that it does really have real emotions. It is really developing real emotions. We've seen this a million times in a million movies, it almost just kind of like sails right past me, because I've seen it so many times. But I mean, just a reminder, I think that this idea of AI developing, especially spontaneously, developing emotions and these aspects of personhood that are unique to humans. I think it implies, when you put that in a robot character, that there's nothing non-physical about people that makes us unique or valuable. That ultimately what makes us valuable and unique can be constructed on a purely physical level. If that weren't the case, then we wouldn't be seeing robots that people care about so much in movies, because the people would recognize, as I do, that this really is impossible for a robot to have feelings and in the way that we have feelings. They could brilliantly simulate them and fool everyone, which for some people, they just say reality is what is all about perception. There is no objective reality outside of that. I totally reject that view. Anyway, I think that emotional investment in fiction, in a purely physical AI, is an outgrowth of an atheistic or non-supernatural worldview. So what's the takeaway from a movie like this? As far as the themes go, I think it's a fine, fun movie, that a lot of families will probably get a kick out of. But as far as the themes, what's the takeaway there? Well, I would say that we ought to reject the extremes presented in this movie. The two extremes presented are, that we either accept dystopia or create utopia. And I say, well, do not accept dystopia. Do not be apathetic and just not involved in trying to make your communities and the lives of others around you better. Don't accept that kind of life. We ought to engage and do what we can to improve the lives and love the people that are around us, care for the people around us, and care for the world. But at the same time, do not think that we can create utopia. We can't. Yes, we should tell our children that they are special. I think unique is probably a better word. That they're unique and uniquely equipped and positioned to really partner with God in reflecting His character, His compassion, His selflessness in improving the lives of others around us. Absolutely, we should do that, and we are missing our purpose if we are not engaging in life that way. So yes, do that. Yes, the world will be better if we take care of it and if we have hope for the future. But the world will ultimately go down the crapper on our watch. The basis of our hope is that God will one day rescue us and fix the mess we're making. And those who trust Jesus to do that will partner with Him, both now and even more in His physical reign on earth in the future. Any other reason for doing good has no ultimately logical basis. If you chase it down, it doesn't have a logical basis. We can't pick ourselves up off the floor if we don't have definitive ground to stand on. And Tomorrowland presents no definitive ground to stand on when attempting to build a utopian future. So in summary, if I were a time travel talking to myself, going back in time 2 days ago, I'd say, Peter, skip it. Redbox it for your boys sometime soon. It's not Maleficent. It's not that kind of experience you might have hoped for. It's a family movie. Your boys will love it, and you won't mind sitting through it with them. It'll even hold your interest and also entertain you now and then. So wait for Redbox. Pick it up then. If I were to time travel to myself 25 years ago, which I would have been, I guess, 12 at the time, I would be like, dude, go see this movie. There's like lasers and jetpacks and robots, and it's awesome. So there you have it. It's rated PG for sequences of sci-fi, action, violence, and peril, thematic elements, and language. Final score, and again, this is for my personal preferences, so don't be mad at me here if you've seen it and loved it. Absolutely, I think a lot of people are going to love it and have every reason to. But for me, quality, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, so it's kind of eh. And relevance, I give it an 8.0 out of 10. That might be generous because I was a little bit disinterested as the movie went along and probably was engaging a little bit more in those kinds of thoughts than I maybe ordinarily would have. But if you're like me, then you might agree. Your experience might be quality 7.5, relevance 8.0. All right. Well, please do like, share, and subscribe. If you like this video and want to share it with other people and want more videos like it, that would really help me out. And yeah, what am I going to say? No, I think that's it. Okay. Oh yeah, and then go to, where's the thing? Boom! ChristianGeekCentral.com, and join us there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.